Hello everyone, my name's Sunny. I'm the UQCS secretary. Hopefully you're all excited for our industry panel today. I know it's not the same, it's not in person, but hopefully you still get some value out of it. We have some of UQCS's biggest sponsors here who we're really grateful to have. So I'll just go around and let everyone sort of introduce themselves. I'll start with the frame on my right, so that's Sasha.
Hey guys, my name's Sasha. I went to UQ. I was in UQCS, won one of the hackathons in 2018-19, which was really fun. So I love being a part of the club. I'm an electrical engineer and I work at IMC. I've been here for 18 months and I'm in the FPGA team. So we work on low latency trading.
Awesome, thanks Sasha. Next, we'll just go down below from there. So Van.
Hey everyone, I'm Van and I'm the graduate recruiter here at Canva. So for those of you that don't know Canva, it's a design tool, one-stop shop for all of your design needs, both online and offline.
Awesome, thanks Van. Next we'll have Patrick.
Hey guys, I'm Patrick from Mycelium, one of the co-founders. So Mycelium is a company that's building and working sort of on the cutting edge of blockchain technology at the moment, particularly in the decentralized finance industries where we're positioned. Thanks for having us on, Sunny.
Thanks, Patrick. Next, let's have Matt.
Hi, my name's Matt. I'm from Technology One. Been with the company for quite some time, and I'm the general manager of our product team. So yeah, very keen to have a chat today and to meet you all virtually. And I went to UQ as well, but it was before UQCS existed, so I didn't get the opportunity or the privilege to be part of UQCS.
Thanks, Matt. And last but not least, Chris.
Hey guys, I'm Chris. I'm a software engineering manager at Deloitte Digital. We're a large consulting firm, so we work with our clients to deliver on their most challenging problems, which varies from a brand new public website to launching an entire digital bank from scratch. It's always a new challenge. I went to QUT, but don't hold that against me. I get the sneak in because I did a couple of subjects at UQ as well, in probably the world's shortest exchange.
Thanks, Chris. So we'll dive in straight into the questions because I'm sure that's what everyone's here to see. So let's start with some general questions about what your company's like. So what's a day in the life at your company? So maybe we'll go kind of in reverse this time. So we'll just start off, Chris.
I don't know if there is like a standard day. Like one of the things I love the most about consulting is it's so different depending on what project you're working on. So at the moment for me, obviously I'm still working from home actually. So a lot of the time I'm here, I'm spending one day in the office and I'm spending one day out visiting the client I'm working for, who are luckily for me based in the city as well. So for me, it's a status meeting in the morning and then checking in with the client, make sure they're happy with what's happening. And then from there, it varies so much from project to project. My role these days, I do a lot more architecture work, which tends to be a bit more solo. And then also managing teams. So I've usually got a team of devs that I'm checking in with. And these days, much more decentralized, people working from home. There's a lot more onus on yourself and your own responsibilities, which I think is good. I definitely enjoy that, and the people I work with enjoy that as well. But I'd say, there's not necessarily a typical day. It really, really depends on the project.
Awesome, that's so interesting. Matt, what's a day in the life like at your company?
Oh, it's a little bit similar because Technology One, while we're a software company, we also have consulting and sales functions within our organization. So we really do have a lot of different functions within the business. So my day would normally start with a stand-up with my team. And we do that every day. That's something that we introduced as part of COVID to make sure that we were touching base with everyone. So we've continued that, and it's a really valuable part of the day. For me, then, it can be extremely varied. It could be a meeting to work through what our next roadmaps are for our product team. So we've got 400 people in our product team, and we need to develop out our roadmaps, work out what we're doing. It could be working with our sales team, with a prospect in a council or a university, for example, because those sort of enterprise organizations are our customers. It could also be working with our consulting or support teams to sort through an implementation issue or a support issue, or work with a customer to explain how we do something within the organization. Because a lot of my role is actually communication to take what we do in our product division and evangelize that and communicate that and educate our internal customers. So that's our salespeople and our consultants and support, but also our external customers. So like Chris, it's very varied, but it's always fun. There's never a dull moment, and every day is different.
So thanks, Matt. That's like a lot of different things. Patrick, what's a day in the life like at your company?
I certainly share a similar sentiment to Chris and Matt, in the sense that no single day is the same. We're building in a very rapidly growing, fast-paced industry at the moment. So a lot of the work that we're involved with from a development perspective is, again, I mentioned at the start, sort of on the cutting edge of building out these new financial smart contract applications. So you're looking into really incredible technologies such as Oracle's, building out decentralized autonomous organizations, building with Solidity, sort of the programming language on Ethereum. So yeah, I guess there's a lot of uncharted territory that we're facing with on a day-to-day basis, and there's a lot of challenges around what's the next step that we're going to take. So from that sense, each day is different and comes with its own sort of unique challenges. So yeah.
Sounds exciting. Thanks, Patrick. Ben, what's a day like at your company?
Hey, okay, so I'm gonna try and step into a software engineer's shoes for this day in the life walkthrough. In that case, yeah, like what they said, there's not one day that's the same, but there's typically a pattern. So with Canva folks, it's usually either straight to breakfast, where we have chefs in the office who make breakfast and lunch for us, but some people, not me, some people like to go to the gym first. There's an on-site gym as well, so before they start working, they do a quick workout, get some breakfast, have your first cup of coffee, go to your first few meetings, and consult with the designers maybe that you're working with, or the product managers that you're working with, and do most of like the bulk of the work stuff. Lunch rolls around. Typically, most Canvanauts eat lunch together as well. It's been a long-standing Canva tradition to do that. Usually after that, most teams kind of go out together to get coffee. If they don't want to get it from the office, want to take a walk. Most people do get bubble tea. Bubble tea is very, very common in the Canva culture, I think. And you might also want to check who's bringing dogs to work that day. Lots of employees get to bring their dogs to work. So you might want to play around with the dogs too. Do some of the team meetings, I would say, at some point in the afternoon, and do the rest of the work. And then if it's a Friday night, there's typically some activity happening with the clubs, or like some team celebrations happening that you can kind of jump into, even if you're not part of that team, maybe. But yeah, always fun things happening for sure.
That sounds so fun. I can confirm Canva food's great. All right, next we have Sasha. What's a day like at IMC?
Cool. Yeah, I guess like our days are a little bit more consistent than maybe the consulting guys. So we also start off with a stand-up, which is 5 to 10 minutes in the morning. With the whole team, and you just talk about what you worked on yesterday. If you're blocked at all, that's kind of the time where you can tell one of the more senior members of the team and try to get some help with that. Then me and the team head out for coffee. There is coffee in the office, but we normally like to head out for a walk. And then that's kind of where it changes a bit more on the day-to-day. So some days I'll already have a project that I'm working on, and I'll just get to sit down and write code for most of the day, which is really enjoyable. Otherwise, it's like debugging issues that come up either in pilot or in production. or working through new designs with other people on the team, like whiteboarding and trying to figure out what the problems actually are and then like how we can solve them. And yeah, we also have like events within the office that you can go to. I think we maybe have rock climbing on this weekend. There's Friday night events. Yeah.
Awesome. That also sounds really fun. Something that a few of the people here brought up was how COVID has sort of changed the way that we work. So how has your company sort of made any like permanent changes, or so for example, offering fully remote roles? And on top of that, how has your company looked after employee morale and well-being while you work from home? So I might start off with Patrick.
Sure thing. So sort of by design, our company supports a very remote, decentralized culture, sort of akin to the technology that we're building on. So COVID hasn't really affected us dramatically. I was speaking with Chris just before we jumped on going live, and said that the physical touch and the physical interactions are always sort of the most meaningful. So we've got an office here in Milton in Brisbane, where a majority of the Mycelium staff come to, but we also have employees in France, in London, in Texas, in New York, sort of based all around the world. So yeah, COVID, it has been challenging from some respects, but I think now that things are sort of somewhat back to normal, and the physical interactions are there, and you can sort of bounce off of the passion of the other people that you're building with. It's a really good thing.
Awesome. Thanks, Patrick. Next, we'll have Matt. How has COVID sort of changed things?
COVID changed us quite significantly, actually. So prior to COVID, we were 99% in the office, and then we had to change that. So in terms of our people, it was a really big change. In terms of our technology, it was no change at all, because everything we do is cloud-based. And so we didn't have to pick up any servers or give people, take machines home or anything like that. It was all just log back onto your workspaces, log back onto your SaaS environments, and get your work done. So it was a very smooth transition in terms of business continuity, keeping everything running, making sure we hit all our deadlines. But we really had to focus on the people side. And so what we did was we instituted daily stand-ups for everyone in the company. Previously, we'd used them in R&D, but we instituted that for every team across the business so that we had that daily interaction with everybody. We were just saying before the call started how interesting it was that everyone really embraced video calling and being able to see each other's faces as part of those daily stand-ups. Everyone had that real hunger for human interaction, even though we were working virtually. So we over-communicated, and that was probably one of the biggest things that we consciously did as a business. We have a critical response team that is there for handling emergencies. And one of the biggest things they did was communicate on a daily basis with everyone in the company what was going on. Because we're a multinational company, we have offices in the UK and New Zealand, every state in Australia, and in Southeast Asia as well. And so we've got a lot of different COVID areas that we had to cover and work with. So communication was critical for us to make sure that we were keeping everyone involved and in the loop. We had additional things like counselling available. So if people wanted to talk to a counsellor, we really promoted those services. So mental health was a really important thing. But then physical health was also something that we really promoted too. So we did things like virtual HIIT sessions and virtual yoga on a Friday afternoon or Friday lunchtime. We had a global walking challenge where we formed teams and did a virtual walk across South America. So there are a lot of these different things that we did to really ensure that everybody felt that they were still part of the company and that they were being informed and they were being kept in the loop and they weren't being kept in the dark. As a result, we came out the other end with no loss of productivity, with no missed targets. We hit all of our financial targets. It was quite amazing. And the big tangible difference when we came out the other side was we now have a formal hybrid working policy. So prior to lockdown, we were 99% in the office. Now we're 50% in the office. And there is the opportunity for full remote working if people want to go that path. But we really encourage people to spend some time in the office and some time at home, because that way you get the best of both worlds. You can focus when you're at home, but then in the office, you get a thing called collisions. It's from a book called The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. Collisions are those incidental conversations that you have, the water cooler conversations, those 5-minute chats when you drop by somebody's desk. And they are absolutely critical to forming those bonds in an organization. It's really hard to do that remotely. And so that's why we're really promoting people getting back in the office, at least part-time, so that we get that collaboration and we get that spark back.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. All of that's really great to hear. Next, we'll have Chris. How's COVID sort of changed things at Deloitte?
Yeah, a lot of similar things to what Matt just touched upon, actually. So I think first of all, like the biggest change is obviously working from home and having a more hybrid working model as well. So at the moment, like the way we operate now as our new normal is you're sort of not expected to be in the office if you don't want to. There's no obligation to be there any amount of time. But then obviously people choose to go into the office and the office is still open. So a lot of people, myself included, have fallen into a habit where we'll spend sort of 2 to 3 days working from home and then 2 to 3 days working from offices. And the reason why I say offices is a lot of the time it'll be also dependent upon our clients. So back in the old days, the normal quote unquote way of working a lot of the time was we'd actually work out of the client offices. And so if we were working with a client on a big project, we'd have a project team co-located with them. Because at the end of the day, they're the customer. And the closer you are to the customer, the better and quicker you'll get that feedback. So we found it really useful to be at client offices as much as possible. Not always possible, depends on the client and their space and things. But as a rule, that was kind of the default way of working. Obviously, that's much less the case now. We're still trying to maintain that kind of contact because as Matt touched upon, like the collisions are great, like both for you and also when you're working with clients. But also just like a video call goes a long way, but it still doesn't, I think, 100% capture what it's like to catch up with people and see people in person. So for me personally, like my routine at the moment is sort of 3 days at home and then sort of 1 day at client and 1 day in our office. And granted, that day in our office, I think these days tends to be a little bit more social and a little bit less productive, but it's important to keep in touch with that team, right? And those collisions might be happening most of the day, but I think that's absolutely a good thing. And knowing that going in, like it's been great for people, especially myself, to get that kind of human contact back. With the working from home, a couple of similar things. So obviously mental health has been a huge thing for us when everyone was remote, and it still continues to this day, just less frequently. But when we were fully remote, we were doing the daily stand-ups, which is just to check in, see how people were doing. We were encouraging routines like walking to work, which like always sounds kind of silly to me, but I did it and absolutely enjoyed it, which is just replacing what would normally be your daily commute with going out for a walk and then coming back home and sitting down and working. And it kind of has that sort of disassociation between your house and your work time, right? Because it sort of replaces your daily commute, but you also get a little bit of fitness, which I definitely need. Then on top of that, we obviously have like the yoga sessions and things as well was a big thing that still continued. We had Friday morning raves, which was always fun. There's actually one of the guys from our Melbourne team who's quite a large DJ. So he'd set up Friday morning like DJ sessions and things, get people in the mood for a pumping Friday. And then now that things are sort of getting back in the office more, we're doing a lot more of our team events in person, which has been great to see. Trying to accommodate where possible people who don't want to be there in person. But in general, a lot of our social events now are moving back to person, and we kind of have like, if not weekly, usually fortnightly social events. So it's been great for that. Even people who aren't in the office will come in for those and hang out and catch up, which has always been awesome. So even people who are working fully remote are getting chances to do that. And the people who are out of the city and working fully remote, like we're definitely doing events to accommodate them as well.
Awesome, that sounds so great. Makes me wish uni did things like that, but anyway. Sasha, how has COVID changed things at IMC?
Yeah, so we're mostly back in the office now. On the trading side, all of our traders are in the office as it's kind of like required for them. They need to work really closely with each other. On the dev side, we have what we're calling team days. So it's typically 2 or 3 days a week when everyone in your team is expected to be in the office. Not everyone makes it in every single time, but we kind of give it a best effort, and that lets us like have more of our longer design-based meetings on those days, so that we can all get in a room and jump on a whiteboard. That's probably one of the things that I missed the most, was just being able to whiteboard with other people within the team. And then in terms of like IMC supporting us, they got everybody an at-home setup, and then I think we got six additional days of leave last year. So like as COVID was progressing, we would get a day or two each month, just so you could like get out of the house and go do something else. IMC also like sponsored a holiday for each employee so that we could get out and actually do something. And then like we continued with our stand-ups, and we also had a daily workout for charity. So we would do push-ups and sit-ups, and then they would all contribute towards like a charity donation from IMC.
That also sounds really great. Lastly, Ben, how has COVID changed things at Canva?
Where do I start? Well, very similar to Matt and Chris, a lot of what they said really do apply to Canva as well, with regards to mental health and physical well-being. Canva has always had a health and well-being coach. So part of having a gym in the office, I think. So that all went online. There was a huge priority in keeping the physical health up, especially during a pandemic. Likewise with mental health, Canva, I think, did a really, really good strategy of having mental health pushed on the forefront, having all those resources available to anybody who feels like they need it. We have an internal coach in Canva. They do professional like life coaching, I think. So aside from that resource, there's also like third-party resource as well of mental health professionals that are on call for everyone who may want to use it. So I really, really appreciated that personally. Sorry, ambulance passing through. We also have a bunch of different clubs. So one of the ways that Canva kept the vibe alive, as we say, a bunch of the Canva clubs also went online. We, for example, at the top of my head, I'm thinking of the True Crime Club. I don't know why it's the first thing in my head, but we have a True Crime Club where we try to solve, where we become internet sleuths, and we go on a Zoom call and talk about like crimes. So weird, I don't know. And then we try to solve them. It's a fun activity. You should try it sometime. But other than that, we have trivia nights going on, and virtual escape rooms, and a bunch of other activities sponsored by the clubs. I think the Beer and Wine Club did like a Beer and Wine Club Zoom call. So I wasn't able to attend that one, but it sounded really fun. And the Canva office, for the most part, is already open. A bunch of people coming through, but what the others have said, Canva has adapted into more of a hybrid type of setup where we're free to work wherever we're comfortable, where we feel safe. If it's the office, then the office is open. If not, then we can work from home as well. Yeah. Thank you, Sani.
Thanks, Ben. That sounds awesome. Now I want to get on a Zoom call with my friends and talk about crime. Sounds really cool. Thanks, everyone. So now let's talk about, again, back to sort of like how you work. What's your favorite part about working where you work? Like, what's the one thing that makes you go like, this is the best company ever, or something like that? We'll start off with Ben.
Oh, okay. So I think Canva does a really, really good job of making employees feel valued. And I'm a recruiter, so I know I'm supposed to say that. But the thing with recruiting for Canva is that it's not hard, because Canva as a company just really sells itself, I think. There's a lot of effort being put into growth in the company. There's a bunch of different streams that you can tap into. For engineers, it could be moving across different teams and tech stacks. It could be staying with one tech stack and really honing in on that specialty. It could be going into leadership or going into product management as well. Bunch of different growth streams that I really appreciate, and goes for all of the other different teams in Canva as well. There isn't one singular definition for growth because it can mean differently to other people, and Canva provides all the resources to make sure that you get there. We have an annual allowance that goes into professional education. You can use it to buy books or to go to the conferences or to enroll yourself in some online classes for additional learning. I really, really value that. We have a stellar mentoring program. So people who are interested in coaching other people or becoming mentors undergo that program so that we can make sure that the newbies, whether they be full-time employees or interns that come in, are mentored well and effectively. And it's not just very niche topics that we talk about as well. We have, in whole Canva University, which is Canva's learning and development arm. So you can go there for like design 101 classes. Canva's a design company after all. But you can also kind of go in there to learn a totally new skill set. There's like articles there on programming 101. So me as a recruiter can kind of try to get scratch the surface so I can understand a little bit of what I'm trying to talk about. And then there's also lessons on how to be a strategic thinker or how to be more productive. Yeah, so I think it's just a lot of the resources to ensure that everybody is growing and learning all the time. One of my favorites. Thank you.
Thanks, man. That was great to hear. Next, we'll have Patrick. What's your favorite thing about working at Mycelium?
Sure. So I think the favorite thing of mine would certainly be that we're really building some meaningful technology. In the open source space, I suppose you're very often interacting with other people's code bases as these really rich organic communities that have formed around certain sort of open source financial protocols. So it feels like every day or sort of every line of code that you're committing to the code base, you're somewhat contributing to this movement that is sort of removing financial intermediaries from the system and sort of creating a more transparent open source financial system. So I suppose it's just the richness of the environment that we're operating in just provides immense meaning to life in general, and yeah, really feels like you're actually trying to solve a problem, and a lot of your passion and energy is really focused on that. So I suppose that's my favorite thing.
Awesome, thanks, Patrick. Next we'll have Matt. What's your favorite thing about working at Tech?
My favorite thing really at Tech One is the diversity of opportunity within the company. I've been with the company since 1996, and in that time I've had at least 6 careers with the organization. I started in technical consulting. I spent a fair bit of time there. I've worked in pre-sales. I've worked in R&D. I headed up our first cloud division. And now I'm the general manager of our product division. So if I tried to do that at a more traditional company, I might have had to change company 6 times to get those opportunities. But I got all of those opportunities within Tech One because it is such a broad and diverse organization. So similar to what Van was talking about with Canva, where you can cross-skill and you can move between different functions in the business, that's something that we actively promote at Tech One. We actively promote someone with consulting experience coming into our product division as potentially a product owner. Yeah, those sort of things happen all the time. And so for me, that is absolutely the #1 thing at Tech One. Closely followed, although this one isn't happening so much right now, closely followed with the international opportunities, because we are a multinational company. So we do regularly have secondments and placements to the UK. and to New Zealand in particular. We also have secondment placements into Southeast Asia. So it's a great opportunity, especially if you're younger, to take on those things and perhaps spend 2 years in the UK.
Oh, that's so awesome. Can't wait for international travel to come back again. Next we'll have Chris. What's your favorite thing about working at Deloitte?
My favorite thing is probably, it's kind of two things, but they're very interrelated. And so that's the challenge of what we do, but also the people. So being a large consulting company, clients pay a lot of money for us to come in, and they pay a lot of money for us to come in and solve their most challenging problems, right? They're not bringing us in to do easy jobs. They're bringing us in to do the stuff they can't do themselves, whether they don't know how or whether it's too hard. So most of the work we do is extremely challenging, but also extremely interesting. And that's, for me personally, like one of the biggest motivators, right, is getting to work with these massive companies on their most complicated problems and trying to solve it for them. But obviously that's quite challenging, and it wouldn't be possible without the people around it. And it's the people that bring me back to my job every day, right? Like, no matter how good or bad the day could be, the people around are always awesome. All the people I work with are brilliant. And that's from the top. So it's a partnership. So even the partners, like some of the most easy, approachable, great to talk to people I've ever met in my life. Literally like those collisions Matt was talking about, had a 10-minute conversation about Beyonce yesterday with the head partner for our team. Like just these things just happen in passing in the office, right? Like, and all the way down to the grads who've just joined, like everyone's incredible. And that's what keeps me motivated every day. And then that attitude of everyone being such nice, lovely people to work with, but also so brilliant and switched on at what they do. It makes the challenge part of it, like the actual solving the problems, so much better and so much more interesting for me, because you're not just doing it on your own, you're doing it with this amazing team of people. So it's kind of two answers, but I think they're very interrelated there, which is like, yeah, how brilliant the people are and how interesting and hard the challenges we have to solve are.
That sounds great. Thanks, Chris. Lastly, Sasha, what's your favorite thing about working at IMC?
Yeah, it's kind of similar to Chris. So I think being a high frequency trading firm, we have some very technically complex problems that we need to solve. And there's a lot of technical detail to those. And personally, like I really like getting into the detail, getting down and implementing something, and hopefully implementing it better than all of the other trading firms so that we can have an edge there. Going in with that is like everyone at IMC is exceedingly intelligent. We have like quite high recruitment requirements. So, you know, everybody in your team is super capable. You get really quality code reviews from everybody. And you can learn a lot from everyone else within the team. So like, for example, we had a C++ book club recently, and some of the older guys within our team attend CPPCon every single year, and they have like a lot of knowledge to share there. So I guess that's my favorite two things about IMC.
It also sounds really great. Thanks, Sasha. So we talked about sort of like diversity of opportunity. Something that UQCS really cares about is also just diversity and inclusion in the workplace and sort of in our society. So the next question is sort of, what does your company actively do to promote and ensure diversity and inclusion at your workplace? So I might start off with Sasha.
Yep. So like IMC's focus is on supporting diversity like within the business. So we try to do that through before the recruiting stage, like supporting younger women and other diverse groups within STEM and getting them to actually enter the STEM field so that they can then be in the recruiting pipeline for us to get them into our business. So like we do that through supporting lots of different university networks, such as like RoboGirls at UQ I was involved with quite a bit, and then we're now a sponsor of them. And then there's some other groups, I think UQ Women's Network, and then a bunch of groups across different universities. Also, like we're involved with Schools Plus, so we get typically groups of mostly girls that are in late primary school and early high school. They were coming into the office, and then some people within our teams would run like robotics workshops with them to try to generate interest for people to join us in STEM. So I guess that's kind of how we go about trying to support diversity.
That's great. Thanks, Sasha. Next we'll have Chris. What does Deloitte do to promote and ensure diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a huge thing for the industry as a whole, right? Because the stereotype for software is always white men. And I'm very aware of the fact that I am a white man saying this. But at Deloitte, like it's something like not just digital, but the company as a whole is super passionate about. We've won a number of awards on LGBTI inclusion, on women. And I know even myself, like I started here 6.5 years ago now as a grad. And in that time, it's incredible to see how far it's actually come, like across not just our division, but the entire organization. Like back when I started, there was definitely like the stereotype still for partners was a lot more white male, and now it's a huge diverse group. It's nearly up to 50-50 male female, up to like a wide range of backgrounds and you know, cultural backgrounds, as well as like religious, like environment, where people are from. It's spread out quite a lot more in this time, because it's been something they've been very passionate about as part of the recruiting process as a whole. Also, like even outside of that, right, like we're very passionate about bringing your whole self to work. So no matter who you are, again, all the way from partner down, like bringing your whole self to work, and our partners absolutely lead that by example. As I mentioned, like having 10-minute conversations about Beyonce with his partner in the middle of the office is not uncommon. And that's just kind of part of who she is, and it's absolutely brilliant, and it's a great inspiration for the rest of the team, right? Because the partners absolutely live and breathe that, and then that just translates down through the entire business. Internally, we have a number of initiatives around all these things, trying to encourage women, trying to encourage LGBTI, trying to encourage other minorities and groups. Yeah, recruitment, investment in university groups. So we sponsor a number of university groups as well. Yeah, like it's something we're super passionate about, and I've had the unique perspective about to see how the company has actually changed over this time I've been here, and how it's changed for the better, because diversity is absolutely so important to everything we do.
That's really awesome to hear. Thanks, Chris. I still have Matt. How does Tech One promote and ensure diversity and inclusion?
Similar to Chris in particular, I suppose, we have a lot of different programs because we recognise that diversity is a lot more than gender. And so we support groups like Women in Tech and Women in Digital. We have internal events to raise awareness and like Chris said, so we can bring our whole selves to work and we can celebrate different cultures and different viewpoints. The area I'd like to talk about, though, similar to what Sasha said, is how we're promoting diversity at the grassroots level. We are a major sponsor of the Tech Girls Are Superheroes movement, which is actually a movement that was started here in Brisbane, but it's now Australia-wide and it's in New Zealand as well. And that's for school-age girls to form teams and create a product. So it's not just about tech, it's also about business and entrepreneurship. We mentor, I'm one of the judges for the competition, and that's a really important part of building that. You know, it's a pipeline, sure, they may never come and work for Tech One, but to get more diversity and to really promote at that base level, because there's been a lot of studies about when girls start to drop out of tech and when they start to drop out of science and maths, and it's around about the age of 10. It's that early. So we're really focusing on trying to get in at that point to keep girls and to keep diverse backgrounds in tech from the very beginning, so we can keep it going. We also have a program that we've developed at Tech One called the STEAM Labs, which is aimed at school-age children, specifically from disadvantaged backgrounds. So we piloted this internally within Tech One with our own children. And so it's STEAM, so it's science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And the whole idea is to create a series of workshops that kids can come to and learn about these different things in a fun way to show that it can be engaging and that they should stick with it. And we take that to schools in disadvantaged areas around Southeast Queensland, because a lot of these kids just don't have access to the technology, and they don't have access to this sort of program. It's getting better slowly, but the difference between taking a program like that to Lockyer Valley High School versus taking it to a privileged private school in Brisbane is just amazing. You know, a lot of these kids have never coded before because they've never had the opportunity and they didn't even know how to start going about it. And we use free open source tools wherever we possibly can, so they can keep using them after we leave. And that's been quite an amazing program. We've won awards for that program. So yeah, I agree very much with what Sasha said. one of the best things we can do is actually get involved at the grassroots level and grow the talent pool right from the very beginning.
That sounds really awesome. Thanks, Matt. Next we'll have Patrick. How does Mycelium sort of ensure diversity?
Sure thing. So I think just from a values perspective, anyone within the company that's sort of acting exclusively or trying to exclude others, or there's not really a sense of camaraderie, that's pretty quickly siphoned out of the company. It's seen as quite a toxic behavior at this point in time. In terms of diversity, we really focus on ideas and ways of thinking more than anything. We're a very sort of merit and idea driven company based off of anything. So I think that we all here really want to sort of keep growing out with that main idea in mind, that let the best ideas sort of rise to the top and create a platform or an environment for people to speak on those ideas. We try and run a relatively flat hierarchy here at Mycelium, again, sort of akin to a decentralized network of decision makers, such that anyone, whether it be a grad or an intern, if they've got a better idea as to how the marketing team should be communicating, that can be put forward. Or say from maybe the non-technical side, coming in and looking at the developer's open source code base, if they think it's garbage and the documentation should be better, than let that idea be heard. So yeah, I think in terms of our initiatives, it's more of a value-based thing at the moment, and we really want people to become a part of the organization and have their say, and that's sort of how we're going to keep moving forwards as well.
So thanks, Patrick. Last but not least, Fan, how does Canva actively promote and ensure diversity?
Thanks, Sani. So I think a lot of what's already been mentioned apply to Canva as well. There's a lot of effort being put, obviously, into making sure that everybody feels like they can bring their whole selves to work. And I think, you know, as with everything, Canva's diversity efforts stem from what the company values are. There's 6 of them, but the forefront have always been, you know, be a good human, and number 2, be a force for good. And everything, if you have that mindset, and if you let these values kind of be your compass in making decisions about inclusion and diversity, I think you're off to a really good start. You know, Canva has also been involved with a bunch of groups that support women in technology, and, you know, other diversity groups as well. And, you know, at the end of the day, Canva is being run by a female CEO, which was one of the reasons why I joined Canva as well. So those, I think, are really, really good. We have engineers volunteering to diversity events inside and outside of the office. We would invite students to come over for diversity nights, where our engineers can talk to them about how Canva is disrupting the industry in this area as well. And we have been starting to get into tapping universities specifically. I mean, aside from sponsoring societies, Canva has also started sponsoring courses. They started with a couple of universities in Sydney, and we're definitely planning to expand this further to encourage everyone to go into the tech space. So yeah, there's a very specific course. It's called Comp 6080, which is a JavaScript focused course being sponsored by Canva and being taught by Canva engineers in a couple of universities in Sydney. So I think those are like some of the many efforts that are being done in Canva. A quick fun little Easter egg that we have on the product in line with diversity is that if you were to type the word pride on the editor, the menu bar, I think, will flicker into a rainbow. So I think that's such a nice touch, little Easter egg for you if you want to try it out. Thank you.
That sounds awesome. Thanks, Pan. So now I'm just going to quickly jump into something that I think a lot of our members who are watching are really, really keen to hear is sort of what's the grad or intern process like at your company? Like, what are some tips that you can share to help them ace their interview, or like what they should put on their resume, stuff like that? So I'll start off with Matt.
Sure. We take grads and interns into various parts of our business, so into development, devs and BAs, project managers and so forth, but also directly into our consulting division and into our support division. So there are a number of different parts of the business that take grads. We take interns into development. Interns only come into dev. I don't think any other parts of the business take interns. The process is pretty straightforward. There's a video interview. There is a test. So we do a coding test for developers and we do an analysis test for BAs. And then there is a face-to-face interview after that, all done in a pretty short space of time. We don't do the test, the coding test or the BA test under test conditions. It's like a take-home assignment. And then those haven't changed for a long time. I actually wrote the BA test and that hasn't changed in at least 5 years. And our developer test hasn't changed since I did it when I first joined the company. So they're not specific to technologies. They are about logical thinking and about problem solving and algorithmic processes. So don't worry about the language. You can use any language you like. It's about showing what you can do, not what language you know. So that's the core part of it. In terms of how to ace it, how to really do well, first thing is make sure you hit the dates in the process. When we're going through our recruitment, we do it to a structure and we make it very clear what that structure is. If you're late, then you're not going to be in the next round. So make sure you hit the dates of getting things back and so on. And the other thing I'd say is make sure you read and understand what's being asked of you, particularly in those tests. We often get tests back that are beautifully written, but they haven't answered the question. So there's a comprehension piece in there too. But that's the process. It's relatively straightforward and we get through that whole thing pretty quickly. What happens though is the most important part really is that final interview. So everything else, your academic results, your test and so forth, is all about getting you that final face-to-face interview, because we are interested in the whole person at Tech One. We want to know not just that you've got great academic results and you can code an algorithm, but that you're also going to be a great cultural fit for the organization. So we want to know what your hobbies are, what your part-time jobs were, where you volunteer, what sports you play, all those sort of things, because we're hiring the whole person. And we want to make sure that anyone who joins Tech One is going to have a great time and is going to fit with our culture.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Next, I'll jump on to Van since she's a recruiter. What does the whole process sort of look like?
Okay, great. So we are hiring grads and interns in a bunch of different areas as well. If you have any questions about the other funnels, I'd be happy to answer them, but I'm going to be focusing on the software engineering ones for now. So for grads, we are hiring all year long. We don't have fixed dates for graduates. So keep them coming. It's a 3-step interview process, one with the recruitment team, and by recruitment team I mean myself, and then there's the second one would be a 1-hour coding interview with an engineer. If that goes well, the final interview would be some more coding challenges and then a values interview. So for interns, it's a little bit different. It's a shortened version, which is also it also starts off with a recruiter interview, and then instead of 2 more interviews to go, it's just 1 technical interview and then a values interview afterwards. So yeah, we have roles open for front end and back end product engineering, so JavaScript and Java. and we're about to open some internships for cloud and infrastructure as well in the next coming months. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks, man. Next I'll have Patrick. What's sort of the hiring process, and do you have any tips?
Sure thing. So we're certainly looking for people that are very passionate about the problem space that we're in, which is sort of creating financial smart contracts that can remove financial intermediaries from the financial system. What it looks like for an intern or a graduate type role, you've got, well, I suppose we are really building on new technology where there's not many courses to say to learn exactly what it's like to develop smart contracts in Solidity, or exactly what it looks like to plug in a Web3 interface to be interacting with the Ethereum blockchain, or interacting with different blockchains. It's sort of where the internet's moving, I suppose, is you'll have this global login where you log into different websites through this Web3 interface. So if you want to sort of get in on the ground level of understanding how these blockchain systems are going to sort of reshape the technology industry, then sort of this is a really good place to sort of start to learn those foundational pieces. I think every day here, we're all still learning. We're all still trying to develop sort of standards that we can teach and onboard people into the space that we're in. So yeah, there's a variety of different things that you can do from a development perspective. So yeah, that's probably leave it at that.
Thanks, Patrick. Next I'll have Sasha. What does the sort of hiring process look like, and do you have any?
Yeah, cool. I guess I interned at IMC and now I'm here as a grad, so I can mostly talk to the intern interview process. It's essentially the same as the grad process. We have 3 different types of roles open right now for interns, and grad roles are open for software engineering. So that's like, there's also trading and software and site reliability engineer, but I'll just talk about the software engineering roles. We're looking for people that have skills in either Java or C++, and we kind of do require that for our coding interview. You need to use one of those 2 languages. So the process looks like you apply online, then there'll be like a resume review and things with recruiting, and then eventually you get through to engineering, which is more me. So there'll be a phone interview. You'll talk to somebody that's on the team that you'll be working in. Then it's kind of like a 2-way street there. We want you to be confident that you're also going to enjoy your time at IMC. And then we have 2 separate days of interviewing. Currently, the first day is on Zoom and the second day is in person. So we fly you down to Sydney for that. It may change to being both in person in the future. So like there's some whiteboarding sessions, which are typical Google style algorithms problems. And then there's a coding interview. And then it finishes up with an interview with our head of technology. So that's more of like a cultural fit process there. So yeah, I mean, seeing as I did intern and now I'm involved in a lot of the technical intern interviews, like just reach out to me on Slack if you have more specific questions.
Awesome, thanks, Sasha. Last but not least, Chris, what does this whole process look like at Deloitte?
Yep, so like a couple of the others, we have a dedicated sort of graduate recruitment team, and they look after both interns and grads. That's at a national level. So they're the first point of contact, and they'll basically do that first level to sort of filtering and making sure you're sort of right for the roles you're applying for. But then after that, it comes to us. And so we'll have sort of two steps. The first is what they call an assessment center, which is kind of a group interview. Where it's 4 or 5 people, sometimes as little as 2, but often more like 4 or 5 people, and you sort of work together to solve a non-technical, solve a problem and sort of work it through as a group to sort of see how you work as a group and how you can work with people, especially people you've only just met. And then after that, it's an interview with the partner, and then off the back of that, like that's the final decision there. It's the exact same for both interns and grads. And unlike most of the others, it sounds like we're actually like not that worried about the technical skills. So we trust that we get a lot of people apply for these roles, and that filtering process, a lot of it looks like what you've done at uni, like what your uni grades are, especially focused on subjects, something big for software. And I know from my personal experience, right, like the software subjects I did very well in at uni, and the other subjects did okay in at uni. But like we focus on what the subjects are relevant to what you're doing. And that sort of initial filtering is all we necessarily care about from a technical side. After that, it's all about your personality, who you are, how you fit with the team, and anything technical, we're confident we'll be able to teach you as part of your role. It's more like, yeah, your fit, your cultural fit, what you want to do. And the advice I'd give, which is very related to that, is just be yourself. I mentioned before about bringing your whole self to work, and like we absolutely like live and breathe that, and we want to see that in interviews. And if people come in and like, I think if you're yourself and you're comfortable with yourself, like that naturally just flows in those interviews, and that that whole process will go much better if you're just being yourself. So as cliche as it is, just be you, and everything else kind of will flow from there.
Hey,
Awesome.
Sonny, I'm sorry to cut you off. I realized that I forgot to give tips. Sorry, bad recruiter.
That's all good.
Okay. If you can give me like a few seconds,
Yeah.
I'd like to give like a couple, because being the only recruiter, I believe, in this panel, so we're like the front lines, right? You got to get through us first to get to the software engineers. So I think I can give you a couple of tips. So going into technical interviews, I always tell candidates to have a discussion first before you solve anything. Like, make sure that you understand what's being asked and that you validate your assumptions before you maybe write code, if that's, or before you whiteboard. Because I think that's really important. The tendency of some candidates is to start coding immediately, and then they realize halfway through that they completely misunderstood, and then they're flustered, they're frustrated, they have to start over. So all of that can be avoided if you have that clarification conversation bit first. And then second, when curating your resumes, and this is really important, make it recruiter friendly. It's not an engineer that gets to see your resumes first. It's the recruiters. We're not engineers. So you want to make sure that you highlight the projects that you've done. It's way better if you're applying to multiple companies, look at the technologies that they're using, and then tailor fit your resume and the projects that you want to showcase. If you're applying to IMC, put Java projects and C++ projects up top. And then if you're applying to Canva, we use Java too. But if you're applying for front end, you want to use JavaScript and highlight those things first. So, just what the project was, the technologies that you used, what problem is this project trying to solve. So I think that's really, really cool. And very important. And I just gravitate towards those resumes when I see them first. So just a tip. Thank you.
Sorry, do you want?
Thanks, Sam. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we really love to see any personal projects that you've done. So if you have like a GitHub or some other repository which shows you actually have taken the initiative to do some projects yourself, we'd love to see that. Even if you just get into some hackathons, even if the code's only somewhat functional, push it up to your GitHub. If you want to talk about it in the interview, that's awesome. We love to see that.
Awesome. These are all amazing tips. So I'm just being a little bit conscious of the time here, and I don't want to keep everyone for a bit too long. So I'll finish off with one question, and I'll give everyone like 1 or 2 sentences only to sort of answer this. And this again goes back to the grad and internship thing, and sort of what impact can I have as a grad or an intern at your company? So I'll just start off with Chris.
I'll try and keep it to a couple of sentences. So for interns, I think like the most interesting thing there is it's a fairly short time. And we, again, like getting back to what I was saying before, we actually care less about your technical skills there, and it's more about cultural fit. So it's an opportunity for us to see how you fit with the team. But just as importantly, it's an opportunity for you to see how you fit with the team and get a more practical idea of the work we do and whether that's the right fit for your circumstances and what you want to do, or whether it's not. And it goes both ways there. And I think that's the most important thing to keep in mind for interns. For grads, we have a very robust grad program, especially in consulting. There's a consulting bootcamp where you learn all about consulting and the things you have to do there. There's D Academy, because we love putting D in front of things. And that's like a training program for grads that you go through throughout the entire time as a grad. But then basically from the point that bootcamp finishes, you're with us, we're putting you with project teams, we're giving you the mentoring and support and the people around you to help you grow and learn and work out what you need to do. But it's very hands-on from basically the moment you start. Like, you get straight into projects and you can start making an impact from like literally your second week.
That's so great to hear. Thanks, Chris. Next, we'll just have Matt. What impact can I have as a grad or an intern
It's quite similar, actually. Our grads join, we do a boot camp with our grads, which is typically about 8 to 10 weeks. And then they go straight into product teams. So they're then actually in a team researching and designing software, manufacturing, and being part of that product team. So our grads hit the ground running, and they really do get involved very early. Our interns, we put on research projects. So we recognize that interns are still studying and that they need flexibility around what they do. And so our interns are on pure research projects, researching things like the applicability of blockchain into our enterprise solutions and stuff like that. I've got an intern in my team who's helping me with researching our new product development lifecycle. And she's a business analyst intern, helping me out 2 days a week with that. So our interns are really in there again, working with the latest technology and really helping us to understand the next horizon, which might be 3 to 5 years in the future for our products.
That's awesome. Thanks, Matt. Patrick, what impact can I have as a grad or an intern at your company?
Yeah, so you can write and deploy financial smart contracts that millions today and billions of people will be using in the future as our financial infrastructure evolves. That's the impact that you can have.
Awesome. Thanks, Patrick. Next we'll have Ben. What impact can I have as a grad or an intern?
Okay, cool. I'm gonna try and keep this really brief. So with grads and interns in Canva, interns work on like siloed projects. They may be working on independent features that they get to work on with their mentors from like start to finish. So you do get that end-to-end exposure to what conceptualizing a project to shipping it looks like. And then these projects get pushed live into Canva itself for when interns come back as full-time graduates after they graduate. So grads, like with Matt and Chris, they hit the ground running in Canva. We put them in the teams like from day one. One of our grads even said that they only felt like a grad for the first 2 days, really, because they get to be part of whatever the team is working on right away, but with the mentoring and support that they need to ensure their success. So you're directly making impact on the product in the 50 million users that we have and the team that you're part of right away.
Awesome, thanks. And lastly, we'll have Sasha. What impact can I have as a grad or an intern?
Cool. Yeah, we give our interns real projects with actual business value. So there's like an intern project that I use every single day that was made by one of our Amsterdam interns. And then as a grad, like the IMC structure is super flat. After a couple of weeks, you just feel like a regular member of the team. There's a little distinction apart from the mentoring sessions that we have.
Awesome. Thanks, Sasha.
Sorry, I'll just jump in there as well, Sunny. If you want to stand out for Mycelium as well, by the way, and sort of start contributing already, just jump to tracer.finance. It's one of the projects that we're building. Pull up the open source code and start contributing. If you want to stand out, we're building it right now. We're building it every day. So jump into the code base and get involved. Good stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, Patrick. So I'm just going to keep everyone for just a couple more minutes. I hope no one's got anything too important waiting. And sort of now I just want to focus a little bit more specifically about where you work and sort of the impact or like what you kind of do specifically for that. So I'll just go alphabetically by like the company names. So I'll just start off with Canva. So Canva's grown incredibly quickly in the last few years. So, you know, it went from a very humble startup with a few people to a multinational company now with like over 1,500 employees. So has this growth changed the culture at Canva or how it works? And I'll ask to keep it brief just because I am conscious of the time.
Yeah. Thanks, Ani. So just a quick overview for context. I joined Canva in 2017. When I joined, there were 40 engineers. I was part of the first 150 people. And by contrast, today, there's like more than 500 engineers, just a little over 4 years later. And you're right, Canva is on hyper growth mode at the moment. And with that, comes a lot of pros and cons. We have to be able to adapt really, really quickly. And in terms of like how that's affected culture, I think that's one of the least of our worries. Again, going back to what the values are: be a good human, be a force for good, empower others, etc. If we have that as our compass, and we have people coming into Canva and resonating with those values, it's easier to find the right people to get into Canva and keep that momentum and culture going. It was never about culture fit. It was more about what can you add to the culture that we already have. As part of our interview process, we have a culture-related interview, but it's not a culture fit interview, it's a values interview, to see what your thoughts are on certain topics, and to see if who you are kind of aligns with what Canva is becoming and what it plans to become in the future. So I think that really helps kind of helps the culture take care of itself, Thanks.
Awesome, thank you, Van. Next I'll jump onto Chris with Deloitte. So consulting seems quite different to normal tech work, so to speak. So for someone in a software position, what do you think might be the biggest difference? And does working for clients change the perspective? So how?
Yeah, I think definitely a lot of those core skills are obviously the same, right? Like especially for software engineers, like it's still most of your day is still spent programming and writing code. I think the biggest difference is there's less, not no, but definitely less opportunity to build that deep knowledge of a product, because we're moving from project to project and client to client. Often you'll, like for example, myself, right? Like in the last year, I've built a bank. I've worked with a financial services company on a superannuation platform. I've worked with a travel agency, which is not the best time for that. And I've also built an election system to help manage elections, right? And those are all very diverse products. And although I've been able to build a good knowledge in each of those sections, you're not there for 4, 5, 6 years on the same project, building this really depth understanding of that knowledge base, right? So that's a downside, but the positive of that is you're constantly getting challenged with new things, right? Like I've done 4 very incredibly diverse projects in the last year to 18 months. And I've learned so much from that even now, like 6 years into my career. And I think that kind of opportunity, unless you're jumping jobs all the time, like that opportunity you don't really get outside of consulting. And especially for what we do as a large consulting company, right? Like we're working with other large companies. And so you get a really interesting insight into how they work. And in often cases, how they don't work, right? Because the sad reality is a lot of time they're bringing us in because they've got something that's going wrong or something that's not working or something they don't know how to do, right? And so you learn a lot from looking into them and seeing what they've done and what has and hasn't worked, and then applying that to your own life as well. So I think it proposes a whole bunch of really interesting components to it, but at the loss of that in-depth knowledge of a single product, right?
Awesome, thanks, Chris. That sounds really awesome. So now I'll jump on with Sasha for IMC. What are some problems which you encounter at IMC that you might not find elsewhere?
Yep, I guess at IMC and in high frequency trading, we have pretty much the lowest latency requirements of any industry. So you get to work on some really high performance systems. So for example, in my day-to-day, I write code that targets an FPGA, not a CPU. And then I get to use that in a CI/CD environment. So I can deploy new code to production on the same day that I write it. And in terms of working with FPGAs, you can't find that at almost any other company.
Thanks, Sasha. Next, I'll jump on to Patrick with Mycelium. So why should software developers strive to work in the blockchain space over other exciting and emerging industries?
Yeah, so I think it's the most exciting and emerging industry. But why should they be working with us? I think, again, this is technology that will sort of absolutely reshape the way that we transact, the way that we trust in many senses. So if you want to come and work with Mycelium, you'll be meaningfully building something where millions of people inevitably will be using on a day-to-day basis. It's sort of your chance to pick up the paintbrush and start painting what you want to imagine the future as. So that's sort of the opportunity that we're offering you at Mycelium.
So thanks, Patrick. And last but not least, so Tech One has been around for over 20 years, and Matt, you yourself have also been there for quite a while. So you would have seen a lot of change and growth and challenges over all of this time. So what are some of the biggest changes you've seen happen both within the company and across the industry?
Yeah, a lot of change. So when I joined Tech One, we had a green screen product. So one of the first things that I was involved with was a transition to Windows, where all of our customers had to learn how to use a mouse. So just think about that for a second. You've only got a keyboard, you have no graphics. And then suddenly someone puts a mouse in front of you and says, go. So the biggest changes that I've seen have really been the way that technology has impacted our customers, because our customers are large service organizations. They're councils, government departments, universities, private hospitals, healthcare providers. We operate in that enterprise space of organizations that deliver services. And so seeing how our software has been able to give those customers a greater ability to reach and to do more with less, to have greater mobility of their staff has been amazing, right? Just the ability for them to get out from behind a desk and take a tablet and connect via the internet rather than having to be sitting in an office with a beige box in front of them and a blue cable out the back is just amazing. So it's really, the biggest changes that I've seen have been the way that Technology One has reinvented itself 4 times now to take on new technology bases and then to help our customers roll those new technology bases out so they gain a quantum leap in what they're able to deliver for their customers. So going from green screen to client server with Microsoft Windows, then moving to web-based technologies, and now the cloud and smart mobile devices have really, we've rewritten our code base every single time, and that's millions of lines of code. Taking our customers on that journey has been the greatest trip, because when the light bulb goes on and they realize what they can do with this new thing you've put in front of them, it's just amazing, right? They just go, oh, wow, this opens up a whole new world. In terms of the challenge, though, the biggest challenge is the one we're in right now, which is taking what is traditionally an on-premise technology. So enterprise systems, traditionally, they've been around for 40 years. They were on-premise, customers would have servers, they'd sit in a data center, and you'd go in with a DVD and install the software on their servers, right? We now, about 10 years ago, we started our cloud division, and we now offer our software as a service, which for someone like Canva, who was born in the cloud, there's just no other way to work, right? But for us, we've still got 500 customers that are still working on premise. And so the big challenge that we're in at the moment is migrating all of that old technology and that old thinking into a modern SaaS environment that's available on any device. So that's a great challenge, but it's also an amazing thing to be part of, because you see those light bulbs going off all the time, and the ability for people to then take that next leap in what they can do with your systems is the most rewarding bit.
Oh, that sounds really awesome. I can't even imagine on-premise servers and installing with a DVD. That's like before my time. But anyway, thank you so much for everyone for coming. Sorry. So thank you for coming, everyone. Please join us on our Slack because I think a lot of our members have a bunch of questions that they'd like to ask and to sort of interact with you. And again, thank you for coming, for answering all of our questions. And hopefully we'll have another event with you all soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Sunny.
Thanks, Sunny. This is really cool.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was awesome.
Thanks a lot.